All right, hey everybody, how you doing today? It's Sean Sullivan, your host for the Selly Podcast. You can find the Selly Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Spotify. You can find us all at the Selly Podcast, TheSullyPodcast, on Facebook. Rather, we are at Real Selly Podcast. That's the username. And so again, we do speak a lot about human trafficking here. I've had lots of different discussions and different guests on in the past, but once more, we're going to speak about human trafficking today. This is actually Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and to kind of pick up where I left off in regards to human trafficking and how that actually does work. So there's lots of different industries that are involved in human trafficking. So there's different things like the roofing industry, different food, restaurants, bars, hotels, the landscaping industry, the commercial construction industry, things like that, where you could obviously how people would be exploited. And there's also different cases where people that will actually traffic children, they do sex trafficking, and all these different things. So sex trafficking rings. To touch up on a little bit of those, one of my previous experiences with personally that exact thing, right? So there are human trafficking rings set up to actually exploit women when they were married. So like newlywed trafficking. Somebody, right? They'll get married. They'll wait for. They'll either do two things, right? So they'll wait on them for a woman to get drunk on her wedding day. Totally, just stalk this woman, wait for her to be by herself in a lonely, vulnerable state, offer her a ride, and you'll never see her again. Well, that actually happened downtown Greenville at one point, and there was a woman, very incoherent, did not know what was going on. There was a trafficker, maybe one deep in a car, you know what I'm saying? He was like, hey, lady, you need a ride? You need a ride? It was not Lyft, was not Uber. He was not there for anything good. And, I, for momentary purposes, just stayed there with her to make sure everything was good, make sure everything was okay. Long story short, dude drove off. Maybe 5 to 10 seconds right after he drove off, the husband pops up out of nowhere. He's like, oh, that's my wife, blah, blah, blah. I told him what happened. But that's actually a real thing, and that happens, that these women actually get taken, on their wedding days, on their most special day. And again, you will like never hear from these women again. That also happens, newlywed trafficking, to where women, where they will be made to marry specific men, and, like for papers, things like that. And they are in these contracts, like they can't just stay with this person. It's not like a real marriage. They're only doing it specifically for, those legal documents. And that happens a lot too, where it's not a real relationship. It's not a real thing, and how does that affect the lady? Obviously, it's hurting her ability to actually trust a person in an actual relationship. It's allowing this man who comes from Lord knows where to, go ahead, marry her, get the papers. And this lady's stuck with this pimp forever. There's lots of different sex trafficking rings that are involved, with obviously prostituting. It's one of the world's oldest crimes, one of the world's first technical crimes is prostitution, just throwing yourselves out there for money. And lots of women get into it, can't get out of it, think they're going to have a good time, think they're going to make some money. And that industry has been popularized and glamorized and made into different things, like OnlyFans and the whole porn industry, to where, you'll have people that are actually behind the scenes, they're involved in exploiting teenagers and minors, for sexual activities, and to get those videos out there because they can make money on these videos, right? And they believe as long as it's caught on video, then it's not an actual crime. That's how they think. And a lot of these people, to be honest with you, they don't think at all. But that is a real thing, when in regards to teenagers being exploited, a lot of that also would happen in the schools. The schools, there will be, different people around, girls and boys. I'm gonna be honest with you, because that's a whole different ball game. SROs, weird teachers, that I actually exploit those kids and give them hush money to have sex with younger people, minors, and that's very odd. You'll hear about the recent school teachers, where they'll be teaching a class of kids, and then in their private life they'll have an OnlyFans account making millions of dollars, which is not morally correct. You know what I'm saying? That's not something where you logically think, am I sending my child to be taught by a prostitute in her private life? And no matter how much this person makes monetarily, they're always devaluing themselves for money. So it's not bringing their classification up in life. They're not bringing themselves up. They are actually devaluing themselves for the dollar, something that a man can make. So they're valuing themselves for currency, for something that we make. They're devaluing themselves for that. Somebody that God created is letting the currency of a man that he has created devalue them. I just think that that's morally absurd. There's a whole bunch of very odd sexual talks, obviously, going into this school, the schools and different things like that. There's little kids being touched inside of schools. They're having to read different booklets on how to ejaculate, how to actually have sex, how to have same sex scenarios go on. And that's just, it's too much for a 12-year-old. It's too much even for a 15-year-old to really wrap their head around, like, what's being taught to them, what's going on. A lot of these personal things should be left personal with families in a private area. Again, it does leave a cesspool for predators to now be in very good positions to exploit the most vulnerable people of society, which are children. That's a very big thing. Again, there's lots of pedophiles out here. There's incest, there's lots of rape, different things that happen. College campuses, that's another breeding ground for human trafficking, for sex trafficking in general, where that could actually occur, break down. And again, like, a lot of these people, we will never see them again if they get caught up in these different human trafficking rings. They could be under the ground, or in some solitary and confined spot being used for sex trafficking for tens of years, maybe even 20 years or so, and doing pretty much a prison bid on, for no reason on their body, and they're having to be used as like cattle for all these different people, which is just, it's absurd. There has to be some sort of resolve and some sort of real fighting force against it, that's not corrupt. Because, so the way that I see things, right? So there's corruption, there's evil, and there's the side of just morally incorrect things that government institutions can be corrupted with, and involved in. And then there are, good moral things, good moral people, good conscious things, good godly things, that is the side of good. At some point, I feel that the side of good has to counteract the side of evil with whatever means that it has to be possible. It's in your constitutional rights to go against a corrupt government. once the government oversteps certain boundaries like that, if they're teaching your little kids, how to have sex, or exploiting your children at the schools, making them very vulnerable, teaching them things that they should not know at that specific moment, you have to make up your mind to, be open-minded, honestly, and think, what's the best for my child and the other 40 kids that are in this classroom, and what's the best thing that I could possibly do? Should I say something? Should I speak directly to the teacher? Should I let the entire world know, like what's going on inside of these classrooms and things like that? And there has been an uprising and a movement for that, but I don't feel that people actually take it serious. A lot of people, they like to, just kind of look at things on Instagrams, but there has to be some sort of real heart movement outside of Instagram Reels and Facebook, moms just getting mad, as school teachers just to be on Facebook. There has to be some real heart movement where these laws are actually going to be changed. These people that have corrupted these policies are actually going to be taken out of their specific office, So that's just one thing that I really wanted to speak about today. I will definitely see you guys later on. Once more, you can find The Sully Podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. On Facebook, we are at Real Sully Podcast. Once more, I'm your host, Deshaun Sullivan, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.